Right now I'm working on Heidegger, on his essay on the origin of the work of art, which I'm rereading because the thing about Heidegger is that you need to reread his essays so that they can start to make sense, since those essays are interreferential. They all presuppose one another. Since Heidegger is a right hemisphere thinker, all of his concepts basically presuppose other concepts, and there is no, now I was analyzing secondhand sources, namely I frequently use Rothal's Cambridge Lexicon of Heidegger, which I find very helpful. And while I was working, and since I've been engaging with Heidegger for over half a year, and I'll already have a huge progress, I already started to understand that, and also considering Marshall McLuhan's understanding of Heidegger, namely that Heidegger doesn't actually realize that his right hemisphere approach, this type of approach which gives hearing and kinesthesis and this sort of close relationship with the earth and with locality, namely that actually it comes forth as a result of a new paradigm that is brought forth by a electronic revolution. And I started to think that I don't know whether it is already done or not, but I was like, I'd be happy if I would ever create a website where I would have a form of web, pun intended in this case, because there is a relationship between a website and electronic technology and the way Heidegger thinks, namely that he thinks in a very anti-Spinozian way. His world is a web rather than a construction of individual building blocks. So I start to play around. I will show it to you right now. In the center of the web, obviously, I thought it would be a good idea to write down his distinction of being with beings, the ontological difference that is, which is the central concept, whereby a being, that is the principle of intelligibility, the background that makes everything else intelligible, should be differentiated from beings themselves. That is, for example, beings that we apprehend in the real world, such as, for example, the pen and the other objects. And then, I started to sketch. So, for example, I connected being with nothing, which is a related term, since nothing is that which lies at the background. It is a world that is phenomenologically accessible, but is preconceptual. But when artists and poets, when they are creating their artworks, they are engaging in an act whereby we are deriving things from the nothing. Things unfold from the pre-linguistic or extra-linguistic realm into the realm of the world. And I have a concept of the world here, but and then I have the concept of the earth, which is a related concept, and the strife. So earth and nothing are also related concepts, because earth is the background that guarantees the existence of the meaning structure, but earth itself is very evasive. You can't pin it down. However, you can listen to it passively and not aggressively. Aggressive listening would be a form of Gestalt that he talks about in his essay, Inquiry Concerning Technology. And then, while I'm doing it, and I also draw a connection between being and Dasein, and then I followed it with history, since every Dasein is a historical Dasein. As a matter of fact, Dasein is Dasein by virtue of its historicity. And all of a sudden, a connection emerged between art and history and the world, with nothing and the Dasein and publicness. And here, it's very interesting that art that sets forth the world and sets forth the earth does it by virtue of its historicity, whereby every type of world that art sets forth, the world here, comes from its historical background, namely that every world that art showcases is a particular historical point. So, of course, there are a number of mistakes, but I find this idea very interesting. And I think that Heidegger will be one of my major subject of research, since he's a crossroad to the German idealism and the post-Heideggerian philosophy, namely Peter Sloterdijk, not just the French postmodernism, which is definitely interesting, but comes nowhere near to German philosophy. And I think that my destination right now that I'm envisioning is Peter Sloterdijk, who presupposes Heidegger. So Peter, you can actually understand Peter Sloterdijk if you haven't nailed down Heidegger and Nietzsche and some other interdisciplinary authors like Heiner Mühlmann, for example. So this dog, basically, is running from us. So this dog that you see right now, he's nowhere to be seen anymore. Basically, yeah, this one. Okay, so this dog has more clout than I will ever have. There was a whole TV program about him in Georgia. Yeah, and he's also castrated, increased his intellectual productivity. Okay, that's an inside joke, or that has become an inside joke of us. And yeah, the thing about this dog is that he is very faithful to us. Every time I take a walk, he's always following me. And that's the difference between like dogs and cats. There was one study that showed that basically when people die in their houses, what are the reactions of like animals? When they have a cat and when their bodies are found, every time it so happens, the cats have started to eat the corpses of their owners. On the other hand, dogs who are faithful and domesticated, unlike cats, dogs either die of hunger or something of that sort. So that shows you the difference between like dogs and cats. What the fuck? What the fuck is happening? There is an ongoing robbery going on there. So today I made a huge progress in my understanding of Heidegger, and I'm so exhausted. I have zero energy to talk about it. Right now I'm going to get some food, not something really interesting since I'm on a keto diet, and I will switch back to carnivore diet. Oh, I need to cross the road. So the thing about my ADHD is that it is of a combined type. So there are 3 variations of ADHD. You have an inattentive type, the one who just looks at you but doesn't really pay attention to what you're saying. They're nodding their head as if they are listening. They don't. It just everything you say just flies over their head. Then you've got an hyperactive type who can never find a resting place, someone who's always fidgeting, suffering from restless leg syndrome. And then you have a combined type, which is me. You get all the benefits. And since I live in a country where ADHD medication is non-existent, since people here, they are so concentrated and stuff, they don't need it. As a matter of fact, like the countries where ADHD medication are banned, in this region it's Russia, Georgia, Armenia, and Belarus. Geniuses, real geniuses. They don't need, productivity drugs. So anyway, life hack that I have found before I got my hands on medication was carnivore diet, which I hate, but it is what it is. In past I was really sympathetic to veganism. I'm still sympathetic to veganism because my understanding of veganism transcends this typical, you see in modern days veganism is just a mouthpiece for a leftist politics. So unfortunately, animal rights and stuff is monopolized by hippies and liberals. And I have nothing against liberals. I have a lot of although I don't like hippies, there is a reason to it. Most of the time, empathy and compassion and all of those stuff is more connected to liberals and hippies and leftists than it is to conservatives, because since there is more atheism and metaphysical naturalism going on in the case of leftists, the only thing left to emphasize with and to be compassionate to is nature and animals. However, besides that, The thing I like about veganism is that it is a very interesting continuation of Western philosophy, of Hegelian idealism. Namely that, the idea of the Faustian overcoming that Spengler talks about, whereby Western consciousness is the Geist is always trying to emancipate, always trying to transcend itself. And this idea of completely, freeing yourself from the animal world, from the nature proper, which is the basis of contractual theories, for example, of Thomas Hobbes and John Locke, for example. This is a recurrent theme, emancipation from nature. You could conceive veganism as an extension of that, as an extension of human rights, for example. And I generally love animals, and therefore I like veganism, not the mainstream veganism, of course, which is just a political weapon. But unfortunately, it so happens, and as much as my understanding goes, without a lab-grown meat, I don't think that I can be actually healthy. And Carnivore Diet has been an absolute help for my ADHD. I didn't really know why it worked that way. The usual explanations that are on the internet aren't really convincing. And then me and my biochemistry lecturer, we have found a really good explanation, namely that high protein, high fat, low carb diet, what it does is that it creates a very fertile environment for a particular bacteria. It is Clostridium difficile, if you pronounce it in Latin, and that bacteria, which causes diarrhea, basically it is supposed to proliferate when you are on such a diet, and this bacteria basically it produces an endotoxin, P-cresol, that is, if my memory holds up, and that endotoxin has a property of crossing the blood-brain barrier, and in central nervous system it acts as an inhibitor of a particular enzyme that converts dopamine to norepinephrine. The name of that enzyme is beta hydroxylase. If I remember my biochemistry class, I think that's what it is. And therefore you experience an increase in dopamine. And every time Carnivore Diet kicks in, I feel it. I'm no longer chasing short-term stimulation, and I'm very concentrated. My mental energy increases, and so on and so forth. So, and of course there is another thing to it, namely that ketone bodies are better for neurons. So that's the thing, and then therefore they produce more mitochondria, and probably it contributes to it. Well, anyway, I need to get back to my carnivore diet. Keto diet is okay, but it's not there. Okay, so basically I was searching for the word plum, and the thing about plum is that I found a variety of it, namely a Greek plum. Now the thing about Greek plums, I don't generally like fruits. I hate fruits, and not because there's something essentially bad about them. There's something I don't find anything inherently wrong with fruits. It's just modern fruits have nothing to do with fruits that our ancestors ate. Modern fruits, they are all very squishy. They are all extremely sugary, and the artificiality of it is really, really depressing. Especially someone who's trying to, maintain a keto diet. So I hate modern fruits. They are too sweet. You don't have that feeling anymore that you're eating a fruit. It's they are so artificially sweet. But I have found a variety of plum, the Greek plum. So what I was talking about before dogs interrupted us is that the thing about those Greek plums is that they are very hard and they retain the taste of fruits, okay? They are hard, they're not very sweet, and they retain the fruitness of the fruit. The fruits
when it comes to Greek plums, using Heideggerian terminology. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say about the Greek plums. So if there's any business that manufactures those Greek plums, although I'm aware that fruits aren't manufactured, so basically they need to pay me for free advertisement. Greek plums, pay me. Let me give you a demonstration. So I was trying to give you a little demonstration where I wanted to like eat the Greek plum in front of you, but I reconsidered. I changed my mind. I imagined how someone who masturbated then went to a store and touched all of those fruits. Not a good thing. Not a good thing. I highly discourage anyone to engage in such a behavior. On that note, goodbye.